So the 2024 edition of Forbidden Door is in the books, and I thought it was a very fun pay-per-view. I've told this before, and I will tell you it again. For my personal taste, I would take a few matches out, but that's just me, right? And I get it. You spent your $50, whatever it may be, and you want to feel like you have a bang for your buck. That's totally cool. I get it. That's not what we're going to talk about today, and instead we're going to get into lessons. Now, this certainly isn't specific to AEW, and I actually think WWE's been doing a really good job of it as of lately, or they've gone more away from the super shenanigans, which admittedly I do enjoy. But that main event between Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland for the AEW World Championship, I just thought was so damn good, because you had two people that, one, you could totally believe, or he could win, or that guy could win, or this could happen, or that could happen. But two, they treated the whole thing super duper serious. Like, even on Collision, they had a weigh-in, and a weigh-in is the most wrestling thing ever, because the reason you have a weigh-in in UFC or MMA or boxing is because you have weight limit you need to hit. In wrestling, there are no weight limits you need to hit. It actually doesn't matter, which is why sometimes you get the big belt that's called the heavyweight championship. Like, well, that doesn't make any sense. But look, I get it. It's sports entertainment. And even there, Will and Swerve just turned it into this absolute murderous rage, personal-filled crazy town, and the hidden blade that Will Ospreay smacked Swerve Strickland with during that kind of tied into the pay-per-view as well. They would just each of these guys, as I interrupt myself, gave at least one death hidden blade. Right? It's like, well, that's it. He's totally done. And of course, that did tie into the spin of the match, where Will Ospreay had the match sort of won, but the referee was down. And then, yes, it does spill outside. You did get some craziness with Don Callis and the screwdriver, which is absolutely attempted murder. But what I liked about that, and this is what I want to talk about today on this video, is we ensured that was there, the story, the narrative, the angle, so I presume that Will Ospreay can finally leave the Don Callis family. But back in the ring, it wasn't like there was a surprise roll-up, or there wasn't like there was some kind of stupid move. It then went back into the fight, right? So there was plenty of opportunity for Will Ospreay to try and get back into that thing. I know he got smashed with the house call, but we have seen so many times in the past where you do have this sort of super mega crazy main event, and it ends like that, and you're like, well, now there's a huge asterisk over this thing. I don't think that was the case here at all. And of course, they go back and forth for a little bit more. Swerve Strickland just ruins him with the swerve stomp and another house call and the big pressure, and he gets the 1, 2, 3. And you still Will Ospreay afterwards kind of like looking internal, like, man, I took my eye off the ball. What was I doing? But we got a very clear winner and a very clear loser, right? I don't mind if Will Ospreay comes out and goes, oh my gosh, if I hadn't taken the referee out, I would have got the victory. But I don't want I was distracted by it on the outside. That's not true. That's not accurate. That's not what happened. And that is a good thing, because too many times when you do have these high octane fights in wrestling, there is a tendency to go, well, I don't really want to be that guy. I don't really want to be that guy. So let's come up with some kind of a finish where you're protecting people. And sometimes you do have to do that. I'm not pretending otherwise. But I feel like wrestling these days, as it does almost try and go back to being a sports-based presentation, wants you to go away going, oh my gosh, I can't believe Swerve Strickland beat Will Ospreay, much like I would do in the Premier League or football or soccer over here in the UK. Like, if the bottom team beats the top team, everybody will talk about it for weeks. Radio stations will react like, oh, it's the end of the world. And the next day they'll be on to something else. And that's what I want from my wrestling too. Now, it was kind of the same with Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40, but I wouldn't use that one as the perfect example, because it just went so off the rails, it was nuts. An actual feud I thought did it better, for lack of a better term, is Brock Lesnar versus Cody Rhodes. I know Brock is super controversial these days, but they had those 3 matches, and it felt like at the end of it, which is why I think Brock endorsed Cody when he held his hand up and gave him a hug, it felt like Cody Rhodes had taken down the beast over this trio of matches. You know, there wasn't anything too dumb in it where you can go, okay, well, Brock Lesnar lost, but he didn't really lose. I think that wrestling should keep giving us more of this kind of a stuff. And when you went through the entirety of the pay-per-view, a lot of it was like that. Like Mercedes Moné, she just won. She is now a double champion. Bryan Danielson, he just won. He is now going through to the Owen Hart Cup tournament. And it's doubly more important when you're doing a tournament, because tournaments need integrity. MJF beat Hechicero. Then there was a ladder match, but that's totally different. As a smaller side, in that ladder match, it had proper danger to it, which is really why most companies should only ever do one ladder match a year, because these, I guess, I don't know if this is the right way to put it, but you want to be able to feel like somebody could get hurt within the confines of a ladder match, but not actually get hurt. That is so hard to pull off, which is why, again, the risk in this is so high. I think Leo Rush has got hurt, so all the best to that guy, but doesn't really, equate to that. But the only time, and I'm sure there's another one that I can't think of right now, but the only time I can remember proper nonsense being there is the Chris Jericho 6-man, because of course course, as soon as Brian Keith had distracted everyone, Jericho just went and slammed everyone in the testicles, but even then it didn't help him. That's another thing I appreciated. The bad guy tried to be bad and it failed, and the super duper good guy that we loved actually took advantage of it and got the victory. And same with Jon Moxley versus Naito, right? I mean, Jon Moxley was going crazy with chairs, but it felt very much like he had been defeated on this evening, and I don't think that makes anything less of Jon Moxley or Will Ospreay or Stephanie Vaquer or whoever else you want to throw in there. I think this is something we need to get away with when it comes to wrestling. Like, even if you did have Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes, right? And let's go back to WrestleMania 39, and let's say Cody had just beaten Roman, or vice versa. I mean, there was loads of shenanigans in that match too, but that was a bloodline trope, so it's fine. I enjoyed it. That's the main thing. But even if you had one of them win and one of them lose, and it was straight up, I think it's the commentator's job and it's the story's job to let you know what are they going to do next. They just suffered a victory, as opposed to trying to put it across like, oh man, what an idiot. You don't need to like that person anymore. And there is a balance to this. Like, you don't want to call somebody up from NXT and then just do it, because otherwise people will just see them as a loser. Dolph Ziggler has talked about that, Nick Nemeth, ever since he lost WWE. And you also don't want to go too far the other way like John Cena used to do. Now, John Cena is an all-time Hall of Famer legend, and I would imagine he was told to do this, but sometimes he would look out there and go, shrug emoji, well, I lost. We'll just move on to the next one. It's like, well, if there's no consequences, what are we watching for? So the fact that Will Ospreay lost, a reason I want to turn into the television, the Dynamite on Wednesday, is to say, well, what are you going to do now? You made your way all to the top of the AEW ladder in record time. You took on Swerve, and he beat you, man. So you're going to go into the wild card? Are you going to be the wild card in the Owen Hart Cup tournament? Are you going to try and find a different way to get there? And Strickland, as he did do in the post-press conference, which he's always very good at, he was like, man, I told you, I'm the guy. I'm the man. I'm the dude. I'm the champion. And I will continue to take everybody down. He also made a big call that he wants to get revenge on Bryan Danielson, which actually, by happenstance, ties into my story too. Because Bryan Danielson deep beat Swerve like 6 months ago, whenever the hell it was. It was probably longer. Time moves so fast. And if we do get to All In Wembley, there's your story. Sometimes it can be this simple. Bryan beat him before. Swerve is now the champion. What is going to happen? And even if we had Swerve Strickland lose clean, whoop bang in the middle of the ring, make sure he has a microphone to talk about this so he can remain over. And now I want to make it very, very clear. This was just something that landed in my brain when I was watching this show. I'm not saying it's something that AEW exclusively does or WWE exclusively does. I think as a whole, wrestling right now, I suppose, is borrowing a leaf out of New Japan. Not the House of Torture stuff. That's gone way in the wrong direction. But for a long old while, that is how New Japan would approach their matches. Like, you'd rarely get any kind of daft stuff because it was presented and shot like a sport. And no, I don't want all of my wrestling to be like that. But when there are stakes and when there is high energy and when there is a consequence to be had if someone's not victorious, then I want it to tie into the wins and the losses. And in fact, it just popped into my head, one of the most ridiculous things about WrestleMania 39, as much as I loved that match, is that Roman Reigns did screw over Cody Rhodes because Solo Sikoa popped up and spiked him, and Cody refused to talk about it. And that was the opposite of this. It's like, Cody, you're being too respectful, man. And eventually he did get there, but again, different take for a different day. But I'm a huge fan of it. I think there is a tendency to remember the 20 years when it was just WWE and think that's the only way to do wrestling. And even WWE has turned around in this quote-unquote new era and said, well, actually, no, there's different ways to do it. And maybe that's what I'm trying to get across here. If you are going to do this massive pay-per-view, I need a little bit of everything. I need a little bit of something. But the crutch of the matter when it comes to championships is you are going to find out who the real champion here is, unless you have something bigger planned down the line. But we don't have that with Swerve and Ospreay. Like, I'm sure there are stories there, but we needed to know in June 2024 who's the better guy, and right now it's Swerve, and that's okay. And if you want to tie it into an emotional thing where Will Ospreay kind of got too upset after Don Callis handed him a screwdriver, which is always going to be the greatest sentence ever, that will be fine by me. But yes, it's like all AEW pay-per-views. They're just fun, and there's something for everyone. If it's not for you, that's totally cool. I'm not saying that you should go out and spend your money on it, but the excellent thing about Forbidden Door is all the extra stuff that you do get to throw in there. And I will admit, sometimes it feels like it has less of a concentrated point, because you can just get random guy like El Phantasmo in the ladder match, right? Awesome. He was never going to win, but it's fun if you're a fan of New Japan and AEW. But even the whole Tanahashi versus Okada stuff, if you had told me that 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, that was ever going to be a case on American soil, I would have called you crazy. And here they were doing it, and I know Tanahashi doesn't have any knees anymore, but he's still Tanahashi, man. So when he walks out there, you still feel something for this guy. And I just love Okada's new character. I like how silly and over the top it is. I like the fact that he doesn't care. I like the fact that he'll cheat and be like, meh, well, what are you going to do? So, yeah, it's a really, really, really good show. It kind of is exactly what you would have expected it to be. Maybe it did lack jeopardy in some of the matches apart from the main event. You go, that guy's going to win, that guy won. This guy's going to win, that guy won. That's another thing that we need too. And I think that's probably why I think the main event hit the highs it did. Not just because of the moves in the ring, but we had a championship there. We'd established the championship as a big deal, and you weren't 100% sure which way it was going to go. And when all was said and done, you could very much say, sure, I don't need Will Ospreay to get a rematch now. He'll get one down the line. But there isn't a reason for him to do that. And that just makes for a better product as and when it works. And if you want to do the dumb stuff on the other side too, that's fine. Like there was a match on Rampage this week between the Outrunners and Orange Cassidy, 2-1-1. I tweeted it out, cheap plug at Simon316. And I mean, 95% of all responses were fun and they understood how good it was. It's a comedy match, quote unquote, but I don't use the term comedy match because there's skill behind comedy matches. People think comedy matches is just ha-ha, goofy. It's not true, although obviously goofy wrestling for life. But you get a few people going, oh man, this is so embarrassing. This is the worst thing I've ever seen. Now listen, I'm totally cool if you don't like it. It'd be ridiculous otherwise. You're allowed your opinion. But it's those people that try and suck it away from wrestling. Oh, we can't have this kind of stuff in wrestling. It doesn't make any sense. This is the good stuff. This is the amazing stuff when it comes to wrestling. I watched that match and I laughed out loud and it made me feel good. At the end of the day, I watch it to be entertained. And the way I want to be entertained is, again, you give me that World Championship match, make me believe in everything that I'm seeing. But you give me a 2-1 match with the Outrunners versus Orange Cassidy, who do all have very, very, very good timing. I want it to be silly and I want it to be stupid too. I don't know how we've got here, but it's just something that popped in my brain. I mean, the old cliche is that wrestling should be a variety act and you get something different on every single segment. And I totally believe that. And you'll never be able to convince me otherwise. And this is a case in point, right? Because within 24, 48 hours, whatever it was, I went from laughing my ass off a couple of, I guess, 80s wannabe trying to drop elbows and then accidentally chopping each other. And then you have two top of their game, arguably two of the best wrestlers in the world, taking this modern style, which is what wrestling is, whether you like it or not, in 2024, and crafting it together to create something that was totally, totally awesome. And the match itself must have been, 25 minutes long? Didn't feel like that at all. It zoomed on by. I was totally invested, and it's a massive couple of thumbs up from me. So yes, WWE keep doing it. AEW keeps doing it. I suppose the next big match will be Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa. I don't mind it when bloodline matches go nuts because I've been taught that's the way. But probably a CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre, that's kind of crazy too. Although that would be one. That would be a great example for me. If we can get to CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre #1 and we get a very clear winner and a very clear loser, oh man, it'd be wonderful. Even if somebody cheats, that's fine, as long as it ties into where the story is going next. But excellent stuff all round. I certainly felt like I got my money's worth. I got too much of my money's worth. I think we could have taken the Jericho match and probably the MJF match and put them on Dynamite, but it was MJF's hometown, so that's fine. And that's not meant to be a criticism of the Chris Jericho match. I like his new character. I know, Simon, you like everything. What an asshole you are. But I just think coming out of a pay-per-view, you want some stuff for the television. You don't want to throw everything on there and then try and sort of work out how am I going to put the puzzles in this piece, or the pieces in this puzzle. That would be the right way around to do it. And Chris Jericho is, is still a star, and we've got Samoa Joe, etc. Actually, that's more important. We need a match on Dynamite, Samoa Joe versus Jeff Cobb. Don't care if it makes sense. Don't care if there's no reason. Don't care if Jeff Cobb is meant to go back to Japan. Get this sorted soon. Sound good? Thank you very much. Now, of course, if you did watch the pay-per-view, let me know what you thought about all this as well in the comments below. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Click the bell, ding, ding, notification crew, and bam, click the video on the screen. It's probably me doing some fantasy mode. Otherwise, it is grillermind.com/Simon. Use code Simon to get 10% off. There's links for all of this stuff down there. I'm happy to rep these supplements because they're super good. Patreon.com/Simon316. Come follow me on social media. Simon316 across them all. Simon J. Miller on TikTok for dumb wrestling videos. Simon Miller on Cameo for personalized videos, whatever you should wish. I can say hello, happy birthday, bar mitzvah, Christmas, whatever it may be. ProWrestlingTees.com/Simon Miller 316. Go and check out my shirt. Same as Samson Athletics. Again, links right down there. But again, just remember, even if you hate AEW from your core, you can just ignore it because it's bringing some people joy, and that's the point in wrestling. There's enough sad stuff in life. Don't need to make it worse. See you soon.